So, now that we've gotten clear on the fact that suffering truly is optional, how do we relieve ourselves of suffering? Well, if there's one thing I've learned from just life in general, let alone Buddhism and spirituality, it's that we suffer because we are attached to things. Now, this isn't to say that, we have to stop loving things or, give things up. But it is our attachment to things that truly is what creates suffering. Hello everyone, and welcome to another video. I am Anne Blackwood, your Silicon Valley sage sister, here to bring consciousness to the forefront of your daily life to make life a little kinder and simpler. And I hope today I can do that by sharing this with you. So, giving up your attachments to things is something that I actually talk about a lot in a lot of different ways, especially when it comes to identity and this idea that we have an identity and having things that we identify with. It's one of the main things that I share with people a lot when I talk about attachment, because again, the only meaning anything has is the meaning you give it. I'm going to be really trying to hammer this home, because the understanding of this is so important on so many different levels. So when it comes to attachment to things like identity, again, the only meaning it has is the meaning we give it. So anytime we are caught up in the idea that someone else maybe feels a certain way about something that we identify with, in the grand scheme of things, it's not about what they think, it's about what you think about what they think. That's the problem. Which is why I'm always encouraging people to give up the things that they're attached to when it comes to their identity. I talk about the fact that I am not anything. I do things. It's my favorite thing to talk about, that I do things, but I am not things. And this is really where we run into trouble, especially when it comes to creating our own suffering, because we do. We often cause most of our own suffering, and it's through our attachments to things that we really don't need to be that attached to. You can do things with ease. You can do things that you enjoy. You can have gratitude, so much gratitude for the things that you do. It's when we identify as those things that we do that it becomes a problem. Recognizing that they are outside of yourself, and that they should remain outside of yourself, so that at any given moment, if you get bored of them, if you find yourself not being able to do that thing that you love to do where you love to do it originally, and so you need to find a new place to do it, it's things like this, where giving ourselves over to especially things that throughout our lives are going to change often, especially if we are awakening, enlightening, growing, and expanding our consciousness, we are constantly going to be going through healthy development, healthy growth, and healthy change. And so the less we can find ourselves attached to the things that we do, the less we can associate those things with who we are, rather than just them being the things that we do, the better off we will be. So a great example of this that I like to talk about is labels. We get so caught up in the labels of who we are. And we not only do that with things that are immutable, we not only do this with things that we can't change, but we constantly do this with things that are constantly changing. It's a lot of where even childhood bullying brings suffering. I was just talking about this the other day with a friend of mine. One year, I had people making fun of me and bullying me for liking something. And then the next year, I get to school after summer vacation and everybody's coming up to me and being like, oh my gosh, I don't know why I ever was like that to you. This thing is so cool. And now I don't even value that thing the way I used to. So had I just been a little less attached to it in the beginning, I wouldn't have experienced any of that suffering that I did in the beginning. Because I wouldn't have placed as much value on it in that way. So I want to encourage everybody to start looking at the things that bother you and start to figure out, just by taking a little time to think about it, meditate on it in that sense, why does this bother me? And more specifically, from where am I drawing an identification? Because that's why, especially when it comes to interacting with other people, that is why we get bothered by things, because we personally identify with them. And when we let go of these things, it doesn't matter what anybody else has to say about it, because when we don't personally identify with them, it no longer stings the same way. Truly. And this is one of the things that I love about all of the friends that are my friends, because I have come to, at this point, only collect people that can have a conversation about the things we do, about the things we appreciate, about the things we love, without taking it personally when the other person disagrees or finds something at fault with it. Because we can recognize that this thing is outside of us. It's not in us. And so because it's not in us in any way, shape, or form, we don't take it personally, because there's nothing personal to take. We get that not only is this not something to be offended by, because it's not a personal attack on us from that level, we also understand that it's not a personal attack on us because it's not about us at all. It's how the other person feels about that thing, not about us. And this saves a lot of hardship and a lot of suffering from being experienced, simply by allowing yourself to take a certain amount of healthy detachment from the situation, from the thing, whatever the thing is. So yeah, the next time you find yourself bothered by something, ask yourself, how do I identify with this? And how can I start to disassociate a bit so that I can stop taking this personally? And yeah, I guarantee you'll start to figure out that there's a lot less suffering to go around when we can just separate ourselves from it just a little bit. It's interesting because, you know, a lot of people find this kind of heartless. But you know, there are people, especially one of what was my very, very good friends, once asked me, you know, if you lost your significant other, wouldn't you be just absolutely devastated? I said no, because I love him. I love him so much. And yeah, it would be very, very, very sad if for some reason he was taken from me. We've been together for a very long time now. And we have been apart previously. We were together for the better part of 7 years, and then separated broke up for 4 years. And we've been back together for, at least another 4. So, you know, we've known each other since we were teenagers. We've been together since we were teenagers. And what is it? Let's see. Let me try to do the math for you. Because it's more than 15 years now. Let's just go with 17. Maybe it might be going on 18 now. But we've been together for the better part of 18 years. So yeah, would I be sad if I lost him? Absolutely. But would I move on? Would I go on? Absolutely. Because things change. And so if I was to internalize that to the degree that it would hurt me that badly to lose him, because I mean, look, like, I don't foresee us breaking up ever again. We've been through that. We know what that's like. We know what it's like to be with other people. We don't want that. We want to be together. And not just because we think that we're the best we can do for ourselves, but because we truly believe that we are the best together. But for all I know, he could end up in a car accident tomorrow, heaven forbid, and not come home. And I can't set myself up to ruin what would be the rest of my life without him because I allowed myself to get so attached that I just couldn't go on. And again, of course, I would be very, very, very sad for a very, very long time. You know, thinking about it, would I end up with somebody else? Probably not for a long, 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 long time. But that said, my honest answer when someone asks me, could I see myself without him? Yeah. Yeah, I could. Because I don't know what tomorrow holds. And I don't want to. But if I absolutely had to, it wouldn't be the end of the world. It would be very, very sad, but not the end of the world. Because I would still be alive. So. And this is a very dramatic, very dramatic example. But we do this with all sorts of things, from the big things to the little things. And the more and more we can start clearing out those little things, the more and more we can start taking ourselves in the right direction with the big things. Like I said, this doesn't mean that you can't love things. This doesn't mean you can't have gratitude for things. But we can also have a healthy amount of detachment from things so that if, for whatever reason, we come across some sort of resistance when it comes to someone else and that thing that we love, we don't identify with it. in that sense. And therefore, it doesn't hurt us to come up against that resistance to it. Because we recognize that we are spirits having a temporary human experience, which means we're going to change and grow throughout life in all sorts of different ways. And there are going to be other ways in which we don't change. And that's cool too. And recognizing that part of that dynamic, amazing, expansive part of being a spirit, having a temporary human experience, is that we do things, but we aren't things. So, the only thing I ever want you to identify with is your soul, your spirit, your higher self. Truly, truly. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for a world of hurt that you don't need to experience. And like I said, this doesn't mean not loving. I really want to stress this. Not identifying with something doesn't mean you can't love it just as much. It just means that it isn't you. It's just something you do. So that if it were to be taken from you for whatever reason, you could have the appropriate period of mourning, the loss of it, and then move on. Because you do want to be able to move on from anything and everything you come in contact with in your life. Even the things you don't foresee losing. Just in case. Just in case. So, to end this, there is, for anything, a healthy amount of detachment that you can have. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you guys for joining me for another video. I hope I've been able to help you make your life a little kinder and simpler. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to check out the links in the description. All sorts of things like my Patreon. If you're really enjoying my videos here, I highly recommend you check out my Patreon, where for as little as $11.11 a month, $11.11 a month, you can get in on all sorts of content where I get even deeper into these things, the practical and the spiritual, guided meditations, journal exercises, any courses or mini-series that I have, all available on Patreon. And as I like to remind people, my ascending tier of Patreon, which is the next level, is $23 a month. And that gives you like everything my Patreon has to offer, pretty much. So otherwise, there's the Sanctuary, which gives you the Sanctuary content. And there's the Enlightening, which gives you the Ascending content. And a once-a-month session with me, one-on-one, plus the Voxer direct messaging. So yeah. May the energies you serve you well. And let's keep making our way through. I am. So I know you can too.